Yo, what is up, Team Starlight? A little over a week ago, the Italian Masters League Finals happened, which was a humongous major tournament for Edison format in Italy, having 318 players. And they just released the top 16 breakdown. So let's check it out and see how the Edison meta has evolved. And trust me, there is some spice in this top 16. But if you guys haven't already, you should follow the Italian Master League on Instagram. They're making some high quality Edison content on Instagram, so check them out there. So this is the meta breakdown for this tournament. There were 65 Blackwing players, 59 value variants, 34 Hero Frog variants, which make note of that because they're, spoiler alert, are not any Hero Frogs represented in top 16. So that's kind of crazy. 29 GB players, 27 Lightsworn variants, 22 Machina Turbos, 18 Frog OTKs, 12 Hero B, 11 Monarchs, 6 Jinzo OTK. The Italians love their Jinzo OTK, okay? And after Jinzo OTK, there's a bunch of different variants. One thing I did want to point out was Gemini being represented by one player. They were one win away from making top 16 with Gemini. So that to me, super duper exciting. They did super well on stream. I think they were on Dragon's Mirror variant. Just feel like there needs to be more Gemini players and then you'll see it top more often. Otherwise, it's a pretty cool meta breakdown. Now let's get into the top 16. Our first top 16 deck is from Alessandro Franchito and he was playing Blackwings. It looks pretty standard for the most part. 2 legacies, 1 Compulse in the main deck is a little spicy, but otherwise it's Blackwings. I don't think we need to spend too much time on this, but congratulations. And then we got another Alessandro Cozzolino, also playing Blackwings. This time they're on the Dark Illusion tech, as well as 1 skill drain in the side deck. But besides that, everything else pretty straightforward, pretty standard, nothing we haven't seen before. So pretty cool deck. Our next top 16 player is Carlo Altea playing Lightsworn, and this looks like a pretty straightforward Lightsworn deck, not Twilight. It is on 41 cards main deck. I feel like the 41st card was maybe the Mirror Force. On 2 main deck Gold Sarks, that does make a ton of sense. Double Jane, double Arcus. Arcus seems really strong in this meta. I do like the Cold Wave. I feel like the Cold Wave has kind of seen less representation in Lightsworn variants as of recent. So seeing it in the main deck here is pretty exciting because Cold Wave is such a huge blowout. It's kind of insane. The triple Threatening Roar is also really nice. It just gives you more turns and more mills, keeps your Lila alive. Sometimes your Lila can stick even longer so you can get another pop. If it keeps your Lumina alive, you just keep getting more free summons. So yeah, Threatening Roar makes a ton of sense in this deck. The side deck seems pretty straightforward. Also, I just noticed there is no Gores in the main deck. They do have Gores in the side deck, but yeah, no Gores in the main. So that's pretty wild considering they have no real actual defense. I guess that's what the 3 Threatening Roars do. So those cards do kind of blank attacks. So I do like that. I think that's a good choice on their part. Also, they have Trunade in the side, which is not very common either. Royal Oppressions and Mask of Restricts are really good for different matchups. Torrential Tribute, I like that. And 1 Consecrated, 1 Cyber Dragon. They were just not worried about machines, which might have been a mistake. Next up, we got Luca Daniele playing Vayu Turbo. And this looks pretty standard. There are a couple spicier things like the 1 Icarus attack. They're on Hamster and Charge Light Brigade, as well as Chaos Sork. They're on the main deck Cyber Dragon, so that's kind of nice. But otherwise, this looks pretty standard Vayu Turbo. One thing in the side deck, the Soul Release, that's not super common. I do also like the 7 Tools in the side deck. 7 Tools is seeing a big growth in popularity as of recent, so that's kind of nice. As well as the Solemn in the side deck. For the most part, pretty straightforward Vayu Turbo here. Congratulations, Luca. Then we got another Blackwing in top 16, piloted by Francesco Laragno. And once again, not much to say here. They're on the Dark Illusion tech, the skill drain in the side. It looks very similar to the previous list that we just looked at for Blackwings. It's Blackwings. Congratulations. Next up, we got Diva Hero B, piloted by Tommaso Lattanzi. And this, honestly, is really cool. I like the 4 draw cards, the Legacy Yatagrasu and the Jar of Greed. The main deck Dust Tornado is also pretty spicy, not super duper common, but otherwise this does look pretty straightforward like a standard Diva Hero beat with one big exception, and that's the side decked Super Polymerization. That is so crazy. I wonder if he actually pulled that off. I don't know if he ever did on stream or anything, but that's super cool. Against Frogs, that can be a humongous blowout, especially when they have like a dupe block and summon their own Stratos, because you can just use their monsters. I wish Super Poly was a little bit better in this format, but I'm also kind of glad it's not, but it's cool seeing it here at all. Also, Shadow Imprisoning Mirror in the side deck. It makes sense. You can't run Imperial because you're running Miracle, so this kind of deals with Vayu Turbo in its own way. So yeah, congratulations, Tommaso. And then we got another Vayu Turbo in top 16 by Armando Naviello. This looks pretty much standard as well. This time main decking Royal Oppression, on Charger Light Brigade plus Hamster. No Chaos Sorcerer in the main deck though. That's one thing to note. The side also looks pretty straightforward. Also on Soul Release, like the last player, this looking like a pretty straightforward Vayu Turbo, almost a Sizzle 41, you know? So GG's to Armando. Then we got Devis Marzola, who's on Gladiator Beast. 43 cards in the main deck here. Triple Book of Moon, triple Trap Sun, pretty standard. Tons of traps. The double Compulse, that's a little bit different. And they're on the Stratos plus Prisma package with the test daggers because that combo is absolutely insane. One thing to note, in the side deck, they do have the Ancient Forest. I do think that's a really fun tech to use in GBs. You have the Brain Control for the mirror matches. You have a Cold Wave for just the more aggressive matchups that have too much back row. Consecrated Lights. Yeah, all this stuff is pretty much stuff we've always seen in GBs. So congratulations to Devis. This is a really cool GB list. Now here's where the spice starts to come, and I'm glad that it happens in top 8. Our first top 8 deck list is Dark Jinzo OTK, piloted by Francesco Del Luongo. And my god, this list is absolutely cooking. Gold Sark plus Future Fusion. Your goal is literally to see Future Fusion engine just OTK because you have the Jinzo Returner, the Jinzos, they all come out, do a crazy amount of damage. But I like what this deck is doing a little bit differently. And the thing that they're doing differently is that they're running the main decked Armageddonite. Triple Armageddonite plus Greffer. And I believe this is one to just stall out by sending Necrogardna. That gives you an extra turn. That way you can actually activate your Legacy of Garasus as well as your Jar of Greeds to maybe see your Future Fusions a lot sooner. It also can send Plague. But on top of that, you can also send Jinzo Returners. So there are probably hands where you have to kind of just play without seeing Few, but you can special summon Machina Fortress by pitching Jinzo. Then you can normal summon Armageddonite to send Jinzo Returner, which would special summon the Jinzo. And right off the bat, that's just an insane amount of pressure that you're putting on your opponent. I do like what Armageddonite does for this deck, as well as allow for you to play Dark Arm Dragon a lot more effectively. I just think this deck is really cool, and it can obviously just randomly win you games because if you see Future Fusion, you just win. You reveal your Fusion monster and then send all the machines in your deck and then just proceed to FTK. It's absolutely disgusting. I am fascinated by the Machina gear frame, the 3-2-1 Machina gear frame. I've seen that a lot in a lot of Jinzo OTK decks where they're on 3 gear frame, 2 fortress, 1 force. I do wonder what the ratios are for that. They're also on the main deck Foolish Burial. That probably helps with making your Machina engine as well as your Jinzo engine a lot faster. This deck is just super duper spicy. It has a lot of really cool techs. This is the type of innovation we'd like to see. And the crazy part is it's not the only Jinzo deck in top 8 because the next deck is by Filippo Bastianini, who also topped with Dark Jinzo OTK, running basically the same exact thing, couple different techs. They're on the Lightning Vortex main deck. They're also on the Triple Arma 1 Greffer package. They're not on Foolish Burial. They're on 5 draw cards, 3 of them being Jar. And those are the main differences. Otherwise, it is pretty much the same concept, and it got them both top 8. So clearly this was cooking. On the side deck, the last player was running Kaiku. This player is opting to run Battle Fader instead. I like the Battle Fader. It gives you the ability to stop an attack and then summon your Jinzo the next turn and then just proceed to push in for huge damage. This list has clearly been refined, and it's clear that these players were working together when creating this list. Shout out to Jinzo OTK decks showing up in top 8. That's absolutely awesome. And our next top 8 player is Salvatore Pisapia, who's playing Vayu Turbo, slightly different version of Vayu Turbo. Don't get me wrong, Vayu Turbo, there's not much you can really do that differently, but this deck is on triple Greffer, double Hamster, no Charger Light Brigade, no Chaos Sorcerer, and on 42 main deck cards. So I think the logic was that they might have more starters by seeing that extra Greffer, that extra Hamster. Soul Release once again showing up in the side decks for these Vayu Turbo decks. I personally just prefer Kaiku, but it seems like Soul Release was working really well for a lot of players here. So congratulations, Salvatore. Our next top 8 deck list is Twilight, piloted by Lorenzo Aurelia. And this looks pretty similar to Jake XO's list that has been consistently topping left and right. This has now just become a meta contender. The main deck Snipe Hunter, the main deck Kaiku, it's just a really solid anti-meta deck that also has these explosive bombs of not only Judgment Dragon, but also Dark Arm Dragon, Chaos Sorcerer, and the fact that you're still milling Wolves, you're still dropping Honest, and on top of that, you have the ability to reuse all of these bombs with Monster Reincarnation. This deck is obviously a humongous threat, and there's a reason why it keeps topping left and right. This is a deck that, while it does feel inconsistent, just needs a little bit of luck, and it'll always end up showing up in top 8. Somebody's gonna top with Twilight, because Twilight has too many main deck bombs. Our first top 4 deck list is Yuri Petanati playing Monarch. And this is such a wild Monarch list. So many different techs here that I gotta talk about. Right off the bat, we can see the main deck Jinzo. So Jinzo just had an amazing time in this Edison tournament. But on top of the Jinzo, we got the 2 Light and Darkness Dragons, items. We got the Dark Dust Spirit main deck. We're on double main deck Soul Exchange as well as 3 enemy controllers. And we're on the main deck Creature Swap. I have always been a lover of Creature Swap. We're on the main deck Water Art. Water Art is just showing up in every type of frog variant. It's just another Trap Dust Shoot. I do like it as a one of because it's one of those cards that when you see late game can just feel really terrible. Triple Legacy Yatagarasu is also super funny because you could theoretically Creature Swap away your Dark Dust Spirit and get the draw 2 effect. So that's kind of cool. I wonder if he ever pulled that off at this tournament. One thing that was very interesting about this deck is they're on no tuners, no Junk Synchron, no Fishborg Blaster. There's just no way to get into Synchro access outside of brain controlling or creature swapping your opponent's tuners. So that's really fascinating. And because we're on the creature swap and brain control and enemy controller, we're also on the side decked Bestiari as well as the Gazeris in the extra deck. So that's kind of fun because, you know, theoretically we could make it. And I wonder if he did this tournament. There were a lot of GB players. Besides that, the side deck is pretty straightforward outside of the other creature swap. We're on the Unifrog, we got a Kaiku, a Breaker to deal with Fossil Dynas, triple DD Crow, triple Vanity's Fiend. But for the most part, I really like this list. So good job to Yuri. Our next top 4 deck list is Giovanni Romano playing Machina Turbo, which, side note, I want everyone to start calling it Machina. Avarice, Raiko, Kaya's Hamster, aka March, but no one's gonna do that because y'all hate me. Some of the standout techs in this deck is the main deck Breakers. Breakers just pair really well with the Machina engine. It's interesting though because normally the Breakers would just be Lila's, but this deck is opting to mill a little bit less. They're not on Charge of the Light Brigade. They're not on Lila. And I think they just like the Breaker because Breaker provides a little bit more pressure than Lila if it sticks. Because if you Breaker pop like a Torrential or something, or pop a Mirror Force, and then you summon out your Machina Fortress, you're putting them on a 2-turn clock. And I think Breaker pairs a little bit better with the main deck Compulsory. You can compulse back not only your Gear Frame to get another search, but you can also compulse back your Breaker to get another pop. Compulse is just an amazing card. I'd honestly try to run it at 3 in this build if I'm on main deck Breaker. I will say though that running Breakers in the main deck can feel a little bit bad when they're on pulling the rug because you have so many cards here that get hurt by it. Caius, Gear Frame, and Breaker. But besides that, I do like the tech. They're also on the main deck Gale, and that also gives them Arcanite Magician access, which would still be a thing that they could do if they're on Lila. 2 main deck Legacies to just help insulate your back row a little bit. No Solemn Judgment in the main deck either. And only 1 main deck Cyber Dragon with 1 in the side. I'm interested to see if the Light Imprisoning Mirrors conflicted at all because you are on Raikos, but it only affects 3 out of 40 of your cards, but they're pretty important cards. I do wonder if there was a little bit of a conflict there. And I wonder how the Needle Sealing played out for them. Needle Sealing was probably just for dupe blocks and just other annoying stuff like plants. I wonder if that card honestly ever saw any play or got its value. So otherwise, GG's Giovanni. This is a really cool Machina Turbo list. Now, in second place, we have our finalist, Marco Castiglione. Hey, you have a really cool first name. They're on Vayu Turbo. Not really much to say here, except they're on Charge of Light Brigade. No Chaos Sorcerer again. Chaos Sorcerer not showing up in a lot of Vayu lists in Italy, apparently. They're on the main deck Foolish Burial as well as Triple Greffer. So this is just to be more aggro. I've been really enjoying seeing Foolish Burial show up in these lists. They're also on only 1 Caius. This is a very interesting Vayu Turbo list because it's a little bit trap light, but otherwise it's pretty much trying to do the same thing here. And there's a reason why it got to the semifinals. One of the spicier things in the side deck is definitely the Elfin the Raven. I like Elfin because it allows for you to synchro climb a lot faster and beat people in the mirror, as well as run over monarchs, which is pretty nice. But everything else looks pretty straightforward. This is a pretty tight list. I like that it's actually at 40. I feel like a lot of Vayu players insist on going above 40, but it's nice to see someone try and cut it down to 40 and see how that goes. And they almost won the entire tournament. They just couldn't do it because there was one player in the way. And that player was Francesco Teschioni playing Frog Monarch. And this Monarch deck is actually really strange. Obviously, there's some straightforward elements here. We have the triple Ryza, triple Caius. We're just here to just Monarch train you over and over and over again with double enemy controller, 1 Soul Exchange in the main deck. What makes it a little different is that we're on the double Water Art main deck, as well as the triple Phoenix Wing Wind Blast. So we're kind of putting them back a turn over and over and over again, ripping cards out of their hand. This game plan seems really toxic, low-key. But on top of that, we're on 2 main deck Junk Synchron just to get us into that synchro pool. But the 4 cards that are like a little bit strange to me, and I kind of don't understand, maybe Frog players in the comments can give me a little bit more insight, is we're on triple Salvage and Des Frog. I get Des Frog. Des Frog is a nice beater that you can get to off of Substitute. Just allows for you to have a little bit more pressure in the deck. But the Salvage is the part that is like kind of blowing my mind a little bit because We're not on Potter Avarice, we're not on Fishborg, so the salvage to me just seems like a little slow because we're very reliant on our normal summon. But I guess the goal might have been to just constantly return back Substitoads and dupes and just have soft locks the entire duel. So I get it to an extent because it is just straight advantage, but since we're not running cards like Light and Darkness Dragon or cards like Fishborg, I honestly don't understand what the salvage was doing in this deck without those cards. I don't know, let me know in the comments what you think about this list, but clearly it was enough to get him through because he won the entire tournament out of 318 players. The crazy part is even though they're on 2 Junk Synchron, they still had room to run the Gazaris in the extra deck, as well as the Bestiari and Laquari in the side deck. Their realization was that their worst matchup was GBs, so they did everything in their power to beat GBs, and it clearly worked because there was only one Gladiator Beast player in the entire top 16. Besides the creature swap and the 2 GB cards in the side deck, everything else is pretty straightforward, and it's really cool to see a Frog variant outside of Frog OTK and Hero Frog win a big major like this. It is really interesting that no Forgs, no Frog OTK, no Dream Frogs, and no Hero Frogs made top 16. It seems like the player base has been very prepared to deal with Hero Frogs, but they're not nearly as prepared to deal with just being Monarch trained. People are barely running Mask and Restrict anymore, and pulling the rug can only do so much. So yeah, this is a really dope top 16. So this is the breakdown of the 16 lists. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about these deck lists. Shout out the IML, they did a great job. Shout out the Italian Master League for hosting an incredible tournament. Their live stream is really dope as well. But with that, thank you so much for watching. Team Starlight signing off. Peace.